In May of 1863, a prospecting party of 29 men, led by a man named Michael Jordan, discovered gold in the Owyhee Mountains of southwestern Idaho. Jordan had first visited the area while pursuing a band of Paiutes accused of marauding local farms and ranches. While pursuing the Paiutes, Jordan noticed that the area held promise of mineral wealth and returned with a prospecting party to search for precious metals, which they found while panning along what would be called Jordan Creek. News of the discovery quickly reached the Boise Basin, and soon prospectors were beating tracks to the Owyhee Mountains to strike their own claims. One prospector, H.B. Mazie, arrived only a month after the initial discovery, and wrote disappointedly that, quote, "The original prospectors have hogged everything available," end quote. Mazie, along with other latecomers, left the Owyhees, and a few spread rumors that the Jordan Creek discovery was nothing but a humbug. Some hardy prospectors ignored the rumors and made discoveries of their own, panning along the creeks and small rivers of the Owyhee. The camps established by prospectors seeded the cluster of towns and cities that were to come. Dewey. The town site of Dewey lies about 5 miles northwest of Silver City and was first known as Boonville. Boonville took its name from one of the original 29 prospectors that followed Michael Jordan into the Owyhee Mountains in 1863. Boonville never amounted to much until the town was purchased by one of Silver City's founding fathers, who renamed the town after himself. William H. Dewey arrived in the area in 1863 and helped establish Silver City in 1864. In the 1880s, Dewey was found guilty, but later acquitted, of shooting and killing Joseph Koenig, a Silver City saloon owner. By the 1890s, William Dewey had found a rich vein of gold on Florida Mountain, which made him a wealthy man who could afford to play the part of a civil engineer, and so bought Boonville. After renaming the town, Dewey set about modernizing it by installing a city water line, a power plant, a 20-stamp mill, and a new grand hotel he called the Dewey Hotel. The fine hotel had 60 rooms and offered guests all the modern conveniences, such as steam heat, electricity, and indoor plumbing. Dewey's hopes for the town never really materialized. His stamp mill barely covered its own cost of construction, and the railroad he hoped for never reached the town. William H. Dewey died at the age of 80 in 1903. His grand hotel survived him by only 3 years, and it burned down in 1905. Today, only the foundations of town buildings, along with the shell of the power plant, remain. Ruby City. Ruby City was established in 1863 and served as the first county seat of Owyhee County. The city got its name from the silver ore that sometimes had a ruby color to it. For 3 years, between 1863 and 1866, Ruby City grew and had a number of good frame buildings along its main street. Ruby City began to die when Silver City, located only about a mile from Ruby City, proved slightly more convenient for the miners working the mines, and by 1866, Silver City became the seat of political and economic power. After 1866, many people simply up and moved their buildings to Silver City. Some sources suggest that the Idaho Hotel, which still stands in Silver City, was first constructed in Ruby City, but was moved in 1867. Ruby City was short-lived, and today only a scant cemetery remains. Silver City. Silver City, Idaho was founded in 1864 around placer mining on the Jordan Creek. The city would have faded away along with the gold placer deposits if not for the discovery of silver ore in quartz veins around the camp. Soon Silver City was flourishing, with silver practically flowing from the Morning Star, the War Eagle, Golden Chariot, and Poorman mines. By 1866, the town was home to Idaho's first daily newspaper, the Owyhee Avalanche. Due to rugged roads and unreliable mail service, news from the outside world only trickled into Silver City. In order to solve this problem and to increase subscriptions, the Avalanche constructed a telegraph line that stretched to Winnemucca, Nevada. The law during the 1860s was fast and loose and based on a miner's idea of common fairness. In 1866, Silver City resident Daniel McIntosh was put on trial for the murder of Tom Canavan during a poker game. McIntosh accused Canavan of cheating, and so shot him. After a short deliberation, the jury found McIntosh not guilty because, as the Avalanche reported, 5 queens are just too many for one hand. Before 1870, the town was the site of 2 mining wars over rights to ore veins. Men working for competing mining companies built forts and barricaded themselves in mine shafts while lawsuits were filed. Both wars were settled without much violence, but in the case of one war, the territorial governor had to dispatch troops to Silver City to keep the peace. Between 1864 and 1875, somewhere between 2,000 and 4,000 people crammed into Silver City, including about 700 to 1,000 Chinese immigrants. Like in other cities, the Chinese of Silver City had a Chinatown, which was located in the southeastern part of the town. The Chinese worked in the mines, but also ran laundries and fetched fresh water from mountain springs, which they delivered to homes in 2 5-gallon buckets for 50 cents a day. Mining activity in Silver City collapsed in 1875 due to poor mine management and national economic depression. The population of Silver City dipped below 1,000, but rose again during the 1890s when new ore deposits were located on nearby Florida Mountain. The town modernized, and its new life lasted until 1910, when the mines began to close down and people left for better economic opportunities. Between 1912 and 1934, the town scraped by as the county seat for Owyhee County, but lost that distinction when the seat was moved to the tiny railroad town of Murphy. Some mining activity continued until the outbreak of the Second World War, when all non-war essential mining was prohibited by the federal government. Today, Silver City serves as a summer residence for many people. The Idaho Hotel, constructed in the 1860s, is still open to guests looking for a unique experience and who are not bothered by the lack of ensuite bathrooms. Delmar. Delmar began in 1866 with the establishment of a mine owned by Joseph Raphael de Lamar, a Dutchman who had traveled the world as a merchant seaman and had worked as an ocean salvage contractor during the American Civil War. The town of Delmar grew around the mine. By the time the mine began to die out, the town had a fine brick schoolhouse, a local newspaper, electricity for the mine, a nice hotel, and a few telephones. Even after mine activity slowed, many people remained in Delmar until after 1910. De Lamar himself didn't stay long in the town, and sold some of his local mining interests in the early 1890s, dabbled in state politics, and eventually moved to New York City, where he married and constructed a fine mansion. De Lamar never really gave up investing in mining, and helped shape the mining towns of Mercer, Utah, Delmar, Nevada, and Delmar, California. Joseph de Lamar died in New York City in 1918. His New York mansion is now owned by the Polish government and houses their consulate general. Back in Idaho, very little remains of Delmar. Most of the buildings were hauled away or have since collapsed into rubble. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share.